What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Slate here in a March Madness edition. Round one, we are underway. Games are happening as we speak. Potentially a game that could mess up a lot of people, whether obviously from a betting standpoint or obviously on the brackets that you've filled out, depending on how this one plays out between Richmond and Iowa. As we sit, it is Richmond, the 12-5 game, up by 2 in the waning seconds of this game. So we'll keep you posted and talk about a lot of line movement, money, all that good stuff as we move along here in this program for the next, 45 minutes or so. Reed T. Fowler will join us in a little bit, get to some football, busy day in the NFL, and of course, golf. That's always near and dear to his heart. But for the first time here on this program, you know him from DK Live, at least I hope you do. Colin Sherwin, how are you, man?
Great to be here. This is definitely an interesting experience to be sitting in my hotel room in Las Vegas, taking a little time away from the sportsbook downstairs, with Richmond up 2 and shooting free throws to ice this one against Iowa. And we got our 12-5. We didn't know if we were going to get a 12-5 this year, but it looks like we're going to get the tradition of the 12-5 upset.
I won't be remotely offended if you say, listen, this is fun, but I'd rather be sitting in the sports book staring at all those TVs and all those games. I mean, you're in Vegas, man. I'm sitting in my basement. You're in Vegas. That's where people need to be for this time of year.
It's, you know what, if you've never been out here, so I was here for conference tournament week as well. If you've never had a chance to come for Vegas, this time in March for the tournament, even if you come for Sweet 16 weekend, but there were 5 conference tournaments out here last week, and you could just bounce around and watch great college basketball at all of these places. All the hotels are just filled with teams, donors, and boosters, and the whole thing. And really, if you love college hoops, there's no better place to be in March than out here. So come on by. But and next year, actually, there will be a first and second round hosted here as well at T-Mobile, which is going to be nuts.
Sounds like a blast. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be wild for sure.
So I'm sure the people are aware, but what we have so far in this day, which is, barely gotten going, you're going to have games all into the night, obviously. Michigan, an 11-6 game, beat Colorado State pretty handedly by the end. Memphis with a minor 9-8 upset of Boise State. You have Providence with a win earlier today over South Dakota State. Tennessee just absolutely crushed Longwood as expected. Baylor handled Norfolk State in that 116 game, wasn't even close. North Carolina currently late in the first half is doubling up Marquette. We'll see how that goes for UNC. Gonzaga and Georgia State are close. And again, this one, it is over. Richmond with a 67-63 win over Iowa. So like you said, we've got our 12-5 game, at least one anyway. And, how much, obviously diving into the wide world of sports betting, we'll show you what we're looking at as far as the DraftKings Sportsbook. How much is this going to mess some people up going forward?
I definitely think Iowa is going to be the one that's going to screw up for most people. The offense in Iowa, if you look at the advanced statistics, they're one of the top 3 offenses in the country. Problem is, can't guard anybody. That looks to have been the problem today. It's tough when you're watching 4 games at once to see, who's not icing a ball screen and who's not switching on a post, things like that. Sometimes it's hard to get into the minutia of the game, but it looks like the Achilles heel for the Hawkeyes all year has just been the defensively, especially at the rim, just not very good. They went from Luka Garza, who couldn't guard at the rim, to another team that can't guard at the rim. And so that sometimes can get you beat in tournaments. Miss a few 3-pointers and all of a sudden you're out. So for McCaffrey, it's going to be interesting. He's been mumbled about for a couple of different jobs in the offseason. So Richmond advancing, you got your 12-5 upset. So that means Sally in accounting and your office pool is probably looking pretty good. The squares like the 12-5 upsets, and this seems to certainly be another one.
Do you have an early, I know we don't have lines or anything like that, but do you have an early thought on what Richmond Providence is going to look like?
So Richmond, by the numbers, is the luckiest team in college basketball this season. They're one of the top 3 luckiest teams in this century in college basketball by the advanced numbers. Seems like they pulled another one out today, got a couple of calls. Richmond, teams on heater are the most dangerous teams. That's always for sure. And Richmond won their way into this tournament. They are continuing to advance. This feels very Oregon State from last year. Win your way into the tournament and then you start to make a run as a double digit. I think Oregon State was actually a 12 as well. So that's going to be a dangerous one. I have not believed in that Providence team all season. I think they've sort of been doing it with smoke and mirrors. They got through today, but I think you're going to have to give Richmond a real look here. So Providence certainly be favored, but it's not going to be a big number. And I think you're going to have to give the Spiders a little consideration. The hottest team in America right now, for sure.
So Colin, I'm not naive. You know, the sharps, they're not watching this show. They're, you know, glued obviously to the games that are going on, and they're paying attention to, you know, what their bets are doing, and living and dying, nail biting, doing whatever it is, obviously. But for the people that are maybe a little bit more casual, or just kind of exposing themselves for the first time, maybe they're in a newly legalized state, whatever the case, the people that are, you know, looking into this and saying, all right, like filling out brackets is a great time, but I want to have more skin in the game. I want to be out there betting on individual games, whether it's obviously the totals, the spread, or, you know, people that like our own Julian Edlow here loves him some first half bets. You know, he'll do first half over unders, all that type of stuff. How do you decide, or how would you advise people in terms of, you know, if people that don't know boo about either you know, either team that's playing in a given game, and you know, wants to do just the cursory amount of research, how do you decide what to bet, how to bet, where to focus beyond just saying, okay, like I know this is a 116 game, the one team is obviously a lot better? Where do you direct people?
So for $20 a year, and this is a pretty basic thing, and you know, if you want to do just a minimal level of research, a kenpom.com account is basically where every line maker is starting. So if you just want to just be that one step ahead of your friends with during the college basketball season, I can't recommend the $20 a month or $20 a year, excuse me, for KenPom more than anything else, because they're going to give you sort of some baseline advanced numbers, but they put it in a format that is very, very accessible to everyone. You don't have to know how offensive rebound rate is established to realize what offensive rebound rate translates to in terms of a matchup in a game like that. The other things to look for is, you know, for example, Julian and I, who, by the way, are both losing our first half bet right now with Gonzaga. Good job, us. But for the most part, we're looking for spots and things on. So last night we saw Rutgers and Notre Dame play a double overtime classic with a shot with 1.4 seconds left that made the difference. That game was played in Dayton, Ohio. From there, Notre Dame will have to fly across the country. They're going to play in San Diego next. And that matters. So you're going to, yes, you get, you know, private plane travel and everything, but after a double overtime game, you got to fly all the way across the country, across time zones, and then you got to play less than 48 hours later. These are good spots to look for, I think. And so that's why I've got Alabama first half coming out in tomorrow's game. Things like that, I think, make a difference. Now, we had another one with St. Bonaventure in the NIT. They hadn't moved west of the Mississippi all year. But then all of a sudden they're in the NIT and they're playing in Colorado at like 5,400 feet of elevation. Those are spots to look for. Injured players are things to keep an eye on as well. You know, that certainly doesn't always work out. You know, LJ Cryer out for Baylor, key players. You know, sometimes they're players that don't have a backup that can really sufficiently fill a hole, especially in college. Those are things to look for, you know, little things that take like a baseline number and then say, okay, well, why would I move up or down on this number? Could be injuries, could be travel, could be exhaustion from a double overtime game, whatever that is. I think those are the things to look for. But generally, that first number, it's probably within 2 or 3 points of being right. And then you're just going to sort of say, okay, well, I would go this way or that way because of X, Y, and Z factor.
So just because obviously we have you for a limited amount of time, and I want to make sure we take a look at some places that people could obviously opt to bet tonight. You've got starting in an hour and change, New Mexico State and UConn. That's a 7-point favorite for Connecticut in that one. Kentucky heavily favored against St. Peter's. You got St. Mary's, which I think is going to be a kind of a chalky Cinderella-like pick for a lot of people in this tournament. 2.5-point favorites against Indiana. Creighton, 2-point dogs, even though I do like Creighton tonight, but 2-point dogs against San Diego State. Vermont and Arkansas a little bit later on. You got San Fran, Murray State. Akron, UCLA is a big spread, as is Kansas and Texas Southern, and Fresno State, Eastern Washington, double figures as well. So where are a couple of games that really stand out to you as far as a good opportunity for people to make money?
So I got a couple today. I think the West Coast Conference has been super underrated all year, and I have them. I have a fun bet with them, which is over 5.5 wins total in the tournament. They've got 3 teams in the tournament, and I think San Francisco has been a little underrated all year. That is a really tough league. The WCC is a tough conference. They are a 2-point underdog right now. I kind of like that game on the money line as well. I think Murray State, and congratulations to them, undefeated in conference play. They've won. I don't think they've lost a game in 3 months, but they haven't played anybody. They ain't, as the college football fans say, they ain't played nobody, Paul. And that's what happens when you're in the OVC and the best other team in your league is in the bottom half of college basketball by a good measure. So I think they're just going to run into a talent problem tonight. And so I have San Francisco +2, and I also have it on the money line. Right now it is down to +1.5. So I like USF this evening. I went to this USF, but I was taking the other USF in this one. And some other games, I think there's going to be a lot of upsets later in this tournament as things progress. But today I didn't see a ton. I certainly didn't see Iowa going down. But the one that I think everybody has sort of latched onto that I think is just fool's gold is Vermont. Everybody looks at Vermont's numbers shooting and they go, well, they got 5 guys who can shoot the ball, and that's how you win in the tournament. They got 5 guys who shoot the ball, but they can't get open if they're playing against Arkansas. Because Arkansas, I think, is one of the best defensive teams in the country who puts on pressure at all different levels. They just haven't seen the kind of athleticism, and Vermont ain't played nobody. They haven't just seen the kind of intensity and defense that you're going to get. The good thing about Arkansas is their consistency. They consistently bring tremendous effort no matter who they play, where they play. I really like Arkansas tonight, laying 4.5. I think this is all a bit too chic of a pick, with Vermont being bet down to 4.5. Is it still 4.5? It is going back up to 5. I grabbed it 4.5, but I still like it at 5. I think this is just everybody being a little too cute with these underdogs and looking for something that's just not quite there. So again, these are some spots that I think work well. The other thing that you might want to keep an eye on is some second half opportunities are definitely going to be there. Look, if the team's shooting the lights out in the first half, that's not always going to hold up in the second. So a little bit of zigzag theory in the NCAA tournament is never a bad idea either. If you've got a 16 seed, let's say, Georgia State, who's only down 2 to Gonzaga at halftime right now. And the total at halftime, it was 14.5. So it was a 12.5 halftime line that has now been bet up to 13 already. I would go even higher with that. I think the Zags are very likely to run the Panthers off the floor here in the second half. So we'll see.
So last thing before we'll bring in Reed in a little bit here. But as far as, obviously the landscape of tonight, we've already seen some upsets today. Iowa's, that could keep me up later. If Gonzaga winds up losing this game, I'm just going to crumple up my bracket into a ball, throw it away, and stop watching the rest of the tournament. That's how upset I'll be. At least I'll say that, and then I'll continue watching the tournament. But what potential upsets do you see in store for us the rest of the way tonight?
Yeah, I think tonight's going to go a little bit of chalk. I don't see anything on the board where I go, I'm sure a 1.5 point upset for a 10 seed in San Francisco. I guess that technically counts as an upset, but I don't really think. I think it's kind of chalky here. Yeah. Tonight just doesn't seem like a night where you're going to see a lot of value. Creighton is certainly.
UConn will get it done. Kentucky will get it done. UCLA, Kansas, Fresno State, these games that had the larger spreads, you don't think anything's going to go sideways there?
I don't see anything, but then again, I also didn't see Richmond getting past Iowa either. But of course, that's what makes the tournament so much fun. Yeah. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. I think there's definitely some games on the board tomorrow where you'll find a little bit of value on some dogs. I don't know if Delaware wins outright, but at 15.5, I don't hate it. Villanova plays so many teams close because of their style and because of their plodding pace. I think that's a pretty good spot. There's a couple others tomorrow where, Colgate is certainly a guard heavy team. Now they flamed out in the tournament last year with a lot of the same players and they didn't show a lot, but they've got one really good point guard and they've got some ability. So I wouldn't hate Colgate catching 8 against a Wisconsin team. But I on the whole, I don't see a ton of massive upsets happening this evening. I would save those for tomorrow, and especially later in the tournament, because I think some of these 3, 4, 5, and 6 seeds are really a lot stronger. Like Duke being a 2 seed, Duke should be an underdog in if they get to the Sweet 16 for sure.
So, Colin, I'm not going to call this show your Slate debut, your one shining moment. The reason for that is because that would imply that you're done. And my man, like, this tournament is going on for the next few weeks, and we got loads of excitement, plenty of opportunity to have you back. I know you're all like cuddled up with our guy Felix Edlow and Benji Zwyman there in Vegas, but we're doing the show again tomorrow. So if you want to come back on tomorrow from that hotel room and join us again and talk about what's going on day 2, we would love to have you.
Adam, I am very happy to do so. We'll be doing this from a different hotel room tomorrow because the way it works here in Vegas is you just sort of bounce around, you find the best, the best spot. So we'll be live a little bit closer to the strip tomorrow. Might be a Chickies and Pete's in the bottom of the hotel tomorrow. So we'll come by. But yeah, enjoyed it, and don't overthink this. The number's probably pretty close to right. You just got to find the edges one way or the other, and you can make a few bucks in this tournament for sure.
There you go.
There's still plenty of opportunity out there.
Beautiful. Well, I'll tell producer Eamon to lock you in. We look forward to chatting with you again tomorrow, hopefully. And we'll let you go. Go enjoy, go back to the sports book, enjoy these games the rest of the night, get comfy, have some beverages and don't move off your butt really for the next several hours. You get to do that now.
I think I can handle the assignment. Thanks, Adam.
There you go. Colin Sherwood from DK Live. Let's bring in Reed T. Fowler here with us on the slate for the next, we got you for another 15, 20 minutes, getting to obviously some golf, what's going on there, but also multitude of reasons. Really of late, the quarterback position in general. We spent a lot of time talking about that with Reed last week. Today, on the, what was it? A day ago, 2 days ago, we had Baker Mayfield basically saying goodbye to Cleveland on social media. And a lot of people came out and said, well, why is he doing this when there is no clear departure for him? Well, then the trade request comes out today and very quickly was answered by the Browns. No, we're not getting rid of you. What are you, nuts? Just because we lost out in Deshaun Watson, you think you could just walk away, Reed? That's not how it works. We still own your rights. We dictate this.
Yeah, well, I didn't get a chance to hear what was all talked about before, but I want to say something about Julian Felix Edlow being in Las Vegas doing work. I don't really think that constitutes his work because he would have been doing that anyway. So let's just get one thing straight. The man's not doing work. He's getting paid to do the same thing that he does every single day.
Although, you know what, Colin, just to further derail us, what Colin said before you came on was that a lot of people, we're going to have to really bring this guy, back down, shrink his head so he can fit through the door when he comes back, because he said so many people have recognized Julian. Hey, we know you from DraftKings. He's out there, he's shaking hands, he's kissing babies. And I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, here's a little thing that will pop that Hey Arnold head of his that I listened to a little Unreasonable Odd podcast, right? Because they were not good enough to get the full Unreasonable Odds as their Twitter handle. But he mentioned with Ben Raza that Gonzaga first half, I think laying 14 was a good bet. So let it be known that the guy who's being recognized in Vegas also gets things wrong quite a bit. And that's the whole point of what I wanted to say about Baker Mayfield too, is that, look, you're going to get things wrong. Like, Baker, you want things right, you're not going to get it right. And if the Browns wanted any of these marquee guys, quarterbacks, and they didn't get it, then you got to settle. I thought Baker is doing is what now we're seeing with a lot of players, right? And maybe it's not on the level of these other guys. He's clearly not on the level of like a Devontae Adams or other players who say, look, I'm just not going to play, right? Like a Lev Bell, I'm just not going to play if I don't get traded. So he had, the players have a lot more power than we think, right, than they originally constitute. And this is all posturing. Anything that happens now outside of actual trades, acquisitions, and signings, like Allen Robinson to the Los Angeles Lakers for Russell Westbrook, it's posturing. And it makes a lot of sense from Baker's standpoint. Is like, hey, you guys didn't get what you want. Now you want to come crying back to me and say you're our quarterback, Baker. Baker's like, screw you guys. I'm going to make you give me a long-term contract for a lot of money if you want me to be your quarterback, or I'm not going to play. And he'll sit, right? Because he's going to find a job elsewhere next year. If he doesn't play this year, he can finally get healthy. He's got 47 injuries that he needs to get fully healthy from. So, if he doesn't play, that's going to be sad. That's going to be bad for him, right, in terms of his bank account. But in the long run, it might be a lot better. Look, Cleveland is tried to do this whole Baker Mayfield experiment for how long? And it just isn't working out, right? And I think it's more of an indictment on the organization, less Baker Mayfield, is that Heisman Trophy winners, look, there's a lot that don't work out, but for the most part, they're half decent. Baker has not been half decent for the time he's been in Cleveland. He's been a turnover machine. He's, the lesser arm strength version of Carson Wentz, in my opinion, who just makes bad decisions in bad spots and can't win the big games, right? That's what you need from your quarterback more times than not every single game, but you need that more times than not. So Baker's like, I think on both sides, right? They're doing exactly what they have to. The Browns are saying, no, we're not going to trade you. And Baker's saying, I'm not going to play. And so who's going to budge first, right? It's posturing. It's all chess moves right now.
Amari Cooper must be feeling great.
But Amari Cooper wants to get paid, right? Yeah. The Cowboys have seen something in Amari Cooper saying, hey, we're fine taking Michael Gallup. We're fine with Dalton Schultz as our tight end. We're really fine. We're extremely excited with CeeDee Lamb, and Amari Cooper has been a guy who's been injured all throughout his career. One of the purest route runners that we have right now in the NFL. I put him up in Keenan Allen, the same, right? Stephon Diggs. These guys are just pure route runners. Justin Jefferson, he's up there when he's healthy, but when he's not, right? Obviously, he's a zero in the stat category. So, right, that's what you have to worry about. And if you're Cleveland, if Baker doesn't play, then you really got to start figuring out what you're going to do.
Well, and I guess I would just ask too, what's the most logical scenario? Like, obviously it's, we've heard 1,000 times over, guy says he wants to be traded, team says no, he still winds up getting traded eventually because it becomes dysfunctional, like behind the scenes. And Baker Mayfield is, can be a strong personality. He's certainly a guy that is willing to speak his opinion to the media. This could be a disaster, an absolute disaster behind the scenes. And that was clear. Even before he sent out the goodbye, thanks for everything Cleveland tweet, which will be awkward. He's going to need a real estate agent to move out of that stadium now. He's going to have to move. He and his wife, Emily, they're going to have to relocate to another new stadium, obviously, Reed. But, does he go to Indy? There's an opportunity there. Like, is Garoppolo going to find his way to Cleveland? I realize that the Browns have come out and said what they said because, they're not going to just all of a sudden let Baker Mayfield wield the power. But by the same token, that season is going to go south in a hurry if they try and start that year with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. And that almost has nothing to do with how he plays.
Right. Exactly. I would argue, look, that division, right? Cincinnati's got got a pretty strong, a pretty good hold on first place in that division for now. If they can stay healthy and if they can protect Joe Burrow, that's the main thing. We'll see what the Ravens do, right? We thought the Ravens acquired a nice little defensive end from the Green Bay Packers and Darius Smith, and
so it seemed
not so fast, my friend, not so fast. So yeah, I mean, look, the Steelers get Mitch Trubisky. Okay, well, at least it's not Mason Rudolph. So if you're the Browns, like, you have a strong defense. You know what it reminds me of, and it's weird talking about, like, the Mitch Trubisky's of the world, is it reminds me of Chicago when they had a really good defense, right? When Khalil Mack came over, they had the number 1, number 2 defense, and they just could not find the quarterback. That kind of is what's happening with Cleveland, is that they have a solid defense. They just don't have someone under center. So if it's Jimmy Garoppolo, fine. If it's, Marcus Mariota, which I don't think it will be, fine. Like, I think there's a lot of players that you can put behind center and get the same result as Baker Mayfield without paying Baker Mayfield money for next year and find your quarterback. So what they're doing, right? What Cleveland is doing is saying, no, this is a valuable asset to us. In their mind, they're like, we're trading this guy. Because look, if you were trying to bring in Deshaun Watson with all of that baggage, you're willing to part ways with Baker at a moment's notice. You already made your decision after last year, probably midway through last year. You said, this guy can't stay healthy. He's not going to win us a championship anytime soon. We're done. And Case Keenum was not that much worse than Baker Mayfield in terms of wins and losses.
Sure. He's signed. He's on the roster. I mean, that's your only other option right now.
Right. So Cleveland is saying to everybody in the league, the other handful of teams, the Indies of the world, the Seattles of the world, this is still a valuable asset to us. So if you're going to pay for this asset, instead of it being 50 cents on the dollar because Baker wants out, it's going to be 60. It's going to be 75. Right. And that's a big, and that's, they might get a third, right, a second day pick for that. And that's massive if you're Cleveland, is getting that type of pick, as opposed to, fourth and a fifth and, in a cloud of dust. So like, that's what they're doing. So that IG post of so long Cleveland, keep it up, Baker, because you're probably not smelling you're not smelling the playing field anytime soon in Cleveland, unless you're a visitor.
I was reading a tweet earlier, and I'm paraphrasing this particular one, but the way that this story is being told, and I guess it's further fuel to the fire for somebody like a Baker Mayfield, or obviously looking back more recently to Russell Wilson, Tom Brady retiring and coming back, which you and I haven't spoken about, Aaron Rodgers with threats of retirement. Will he move on? Winds up, going back to Green Bay. Deshaun Watson and the future for him right now. Browns are obviously out of the running. And now it's, he has a decision to make, which supposedly is coming imminently, between the Saints, the Falcons, and Panthers. And I ask you, why does he have a decision to make? Like, isn't this the Texans' decision to make? Like, why does Deshaun Watson get to choose where his destination is, where he's going? There's a trade to be worked out here. The guy is under contract. It's amazing to me that we're not getting more from Houston in this situation in terms of dictating how this is going to play out, versus it's just all about Deshaun Watson's camp now that, he has been legally cleared and ready to play.
Does he have a no trade clause? I feel like he does.
He may, but
I think that's why.
But even if he does, like, fine. So you have a small package, 3 teams that you're interested in. Now it's up to us to decide. I don't know. To me, it seems too simplistic that he's just going to veto till he gets the one he wants. But again, players have power. I get it.
Right. Exactly. And I'm always going to side with the players. Right. And, unless I'm one of the very 0.0000001% of population that owns a professional sports team, I am always going to side with the players, and especially the players getting paid, because they're the ones that are on the field. So look, Deshaun Watson, the whole issue with Deshaun Watson, like I won't get into that, but what he's done is reprehensible, period, full stop. Now, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. Like, if there's even murmurs of it, that's bad. That's always going to be bad. Now, having said that, from a football standpoint, like that, he's still 27 years old, right? And if you're the Houston Texans, that is an extremely valuable asset. As tainted as it is, like he's not going to play another down in Houston, right? So if you know that from a business standpoint, that you have to get rid of this depreciating asset because you're paying him, but he's not giving anything to you, right? It's like putting gas in the car that you never drive. Then you need to get something for that. You need to get something for your asset, unless you want to be behind the 8 ball and go 3-14, 2-4, 2-16, 2-15 every single season with Mills, right? Like that's what you need to do. Is you need to rebuild. You need to start to get that out of your system, give it to someone else to handle, and then be on your merry way. So, I like if Houston came out and said, like, it's our decision, like pounding the table, it's our decision, that wouldn't look great from a PR standpoint, right? The last thing they want is another PR nightmare. So they're staying back, and they've probably talked to Deshaun Watson's team and says, look, you guys can handle all this. We just want to get a deal done. So let us know the teams that you want to go to. If there is a no trade clause for Watson, I believe there is. And if there isn't, then yeah, it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit more awkward. But if that's the case, then right, that makes a little bit more sense. And of those teams, Koff, I think the Atlanta Falcons are the team that is probably most suited, and he wants to go there.
What
right?
becomes of me? We know it from a fantasy perspective. It's interesting. I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, but I mean, take a look at what just happened to them last year with OBJ.
Yeah.
Right. Like at this juncture for these guys, it's not about how many catches and targets that you have per game. It's about the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And where's the best place to go right now in the NFC? Right. I don't think he wants to compete in the AFC.
Yeah.
And look, where would he go? Right, in the AFC? Where would he have gotten that same amount of money and the same opportunity to win a Super Bowl next year?
Mm-hmm.
And with a lot of free agents, right, for the Rams this coming season, I think that's a great signing for them. And look, even if OBJ does come back, even if Robert Woods does come back, now you have 4 wide receivers that could be considered at any point in their careers a top 12 wide receiver, right? Like top 10 wide receiver in terms of how talented they are. So Matt Stafford, you got no excuses. You have embarrassment of riches. It's just, can they repeat? It's always extremely hard. But if you got A-Rob and you start to put these pieces together, it's actually a pretty nice deal. I wouldn't have, maybe Green Bay, right? What was the other team that I thought that Allen Robinson would go to? But boy, how many times have we said about him? Get him a quarterback. Let's see what he can do. And that's what he did.
So we've only got a minute or two left, but I want to make sure we hit on the Valspar Championship that's going on. Of course, it is round 1, Reed. You got Johnny Vegas is tied for the lead with David Lipschitz here. Lipsky, these two guys are tied for first, although Lipsky's not in the clubhouse yet. He's 7 under, again, sharing that lead, and he's got a few holes left, so we'll see. Very crowded, as one would expect. I mean, there are, scrolling back, you've got, the top 30 guys are within 3 shots of the lead. So what do you think of round 1 here?
Yeah, it's nice to see that there's some blue skies and it's not just gray, wind washed, and these guys are playing better golf than they did obviously last week. Some players who missed the cut last week are playing well, as was assumed that they weren't going to be tired or fatigued coming into this week, not having to play over 5 days and 4 rounds at TPC Sawgrass. But this is going to be a tough course, right? It's very receptive. It was soft. It rained the night before, so the greens were soft, and that's usually not the case here. It's going to be windy tomorrow, Koff. We're going to see 20-mile-per-hour winds, I think, in the afternoon, sustained about 15, 17. So the guys who teed off in the morning and have PM tee times now tomorrow, that's going to be a little bit tough, right? This course has played tough over the last handful of years, 6th hardest in terms of scoring relative to par in like 2018 and 19, winning scores around 10 under par. And these guys are already there. So we'll probably see it equalize a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Lipsky, Vegas, these guys, Danny Lee, some key names. DJ is up there at 4 under. Brooks is at 4 under. Xander's at 4. Shane Lowry's at 3. So, some of the marquee names, the best field that this tournament has seen, I think, in its history, we're seeing a lot of key names up at the top.
Be a lot of fun to monitor over the next few days, as will obviously the opening rounds of the NCAA tournament. Much more on that on the Sweat tomorrow morning. I'll be with you for that in studio. Then the Slate tomorrow afternoon. Colin will be hopefully back with us. We'll have Matt LaMarca with us to take you into the weekend. So there's a lot of good stuff happening in the sports world. March, baby. It's madness across the board, whole bunch of different sports, and the NFL refuses to be left out on an almost hourly basis. It's a really good time. Our thanks to producer Eamon, to Daniel, our technical director, Colin Sherwin joining us earlier, and of course, Reed T. Fowler. If Gonzaga loses this game, currently up 2 very early in the second half, if the Zags lose this game, I'm going to light my bracket on fire. You will have the Texans and Colts next for a Madden Sim. Check it out. We'll talk to you again tomorrow morning.
Aid Felix.